I live alone. I've lived alone for about 4 years now. A one-bedroom apartment on the third floor of a building that was probably nice in the 80s and has been slowly declining since. The carpet in the hallway is that dark industrial kind that never looks dirty because it never looked clean in the first place. My unit is 3F, end of the hall, next to the stairwell. I like it. Or I liked it. It was quiet. The walls were thick enough that I only heard my neighbors during football season, or if someone's smoke alarm went off. I had a routine. Work at the insurance office downtown. Home by 5:30. Feed the cat. Check the mail. Make dinner. Watch something. Bed. The mailbox was in the lobby. A wall of brass-fronted boxes with tiny keyholes. Mine was third row from the bottom. I checked it every day, sometimes twice if I was expecting something. Bills. Catalogs I never signed up for. Occasionally, a card from my aunt in New Mexico, who still sends physical birthday cards with $20 bills inside. That's how I noticed it, because of my aunt's card. It came in early March, her handwriting on the envelope, my address, the little flower sticker she always puts in the corner of the seal. I recognized it immediately and felt that small, warm thing you feel when someone remembers you exist. I opened it at the kitchen counter. The card was a watercolor of a desert landscape. Inside, she'd written, "Happy birthday, sweetheart. I'm so proud of the woman you've become." $20 bill tucked in the fold. And beneath the card, a second piece of paper. Thin, white, the kind of paper you'd put through a standard printer. It was a photocopy of the card, front and back. My aunt's handwriting reproduced perfectly. The desert landscape, the printed message, her handwritten addition. Even the fold line was visible, like someone had opened the card flat on a scanner, copied both sides, then folded the copy and placed it beneath the original. The $20 bill was still there. Nothing was missing. Nothing was damaged. Just the copy, folded neatly, placed inside the envelope with the original card. I stood there holding both pieces, looking at them side by side, the original with its slight texture and ink indentations. The copy flat and smooth with that slightly blue-gray quality photocopiers give things. I thought my aunt had done it. Maybe she'd made a copy for her records. Accidentally included both. She's in her 70s, gets confused sometimes, mixes things up. It was exactly the kind of mistake she would make and then feel embarrassed about if I mentioned it. I almost called her, but it was late, and it didn't seem worth bothering her over. I threw the copy away, put the card on my fridge with a magnet, kept the 20 in my wallet. That was the first one. The second was about 4 days later. Not a card this time. A letter from my dentist's office confirming an appointment I'd made 2 weeks earlier. Standard form letter. My name and appointment date filled in. Please arrive 15 minutes early. I opened it on the way up the stairs, read the letter, folded it back into the envelope, then felt something else inside. Another sheet, same thin white paper, a photocopy of the letter, same content, same layout. But on the copy, someone had highlighted a line, yellow highlighter, the line that said your current balance of $340 remains outstanding. I stopped on the landing between the second and third floor, looked at the original letter, same line, not highlighted, just printed normally among all the other text. The copy had it highlighted, specifically, deliberately. I looked at the envelope, My name, my address, the dentist office's return address in the upper left. The seal was. I checked. It was sealed normally. No sign of tampering, no sign of being opened and resealed. The flap was glued down smooth. How did someone put a copy inside a sealed envelope? I went into my apartment, sat down at the kitchen table, looked at both documents side by side. The highlight was neat, precise. One single line, the outstanding balance. Like someone wanted to make sure I noticed it. Like someone was pointing at it. I thought about the dentist office. Maybe they'd included a highlighted copy as an additional reminder. Some offices do aggressive follow-up on unpaid balances. Maybe this was their version of a polite nudge. Print the letter, photocopy it, highlight the balance, include both. That made sense, sort of. Except the envelope wasn't thick enough for 2 sheets when I pulled it from the mailbox. Or was it? I couldn't remember now. I hadn't been paying attention to the thickness of a piece of mail. I threw the copy away, paid the balance online that evening. Not because of the highlight, because I'd been meaning to, but I noticed the timing. The third piece of mail came a week later, a bill from my electric company. Normal monthly statement, amount due, due date, account number, inside, a copy, same thin paper. This time 2 things were highlighted, my account number and the service address, my apartment number, 3F. I sat with it for a while. The highlight on the account number made some vague sense. Security, verification, but the service address, my own address, highlighted in yellow on a photocopy of my own electric bill that was already inside the envelope addressed to me. Why would anyone highlight my address for me? I know where I live, unless it wasn't for me, unless it was showing me what someone else had noticed. I called the electric company the next morning, asked if they'd included any additional documentation in my statement. The woman said no, just the standard monthly bill, 1 page. I asked if they ever sent highlighted copies. She said she didn't understand the question. I said never mind. I called the dentist. Same question. They said no, just the appointment confirmation. 1 letter. I didn't call my aunt. I couldn't figure out how to ask without sounding strange. For about a week after that, nothing happened. Normal mail, bills, a catalog, a notice about a community meeting in the building. All normal. No copies, no highlights. I started to relax about it. Told myself it was some kind of postal error. Maybe mail was being processed through a system that occasionally duplicated documents. Maybe there was a scanning step at the distribution center that sometimes misfired and printed extras. Government mail systems have problems all the time. Things get lost. Things get duplicated. Things end up in wrong boxes. Then, a piece of mail came that changed things. It was a personal letter from my friend Danny. She lives in Oregon. We've been close since college, but we're both bad at texting, so sometimes she writes actual letters. Long ones, pages. She tells me about her garden and her dogs, and whatever book she's reading, and her terrible neighbors. I got one of her letters on a Tuesday, recognized her handwriting immediately, opened it at the counter like always. 4 pages, front and back, her usual rambling style, jumping between topics, drawings in the margins. She talked about work being hard, about her landlord raising the rent, about a weird dream she'd had where her dead grandmother was trying to give her a phone number, about how she'd been seeing someone new but wasn't sure about him yet, about how she missed me and wished I'd visit. At the bottom of the pages, beneath the last sheet, the copy, 4 pages, front and back, every page reproduced. Danny's handwriting perfectly captured, her little doodles, her crossouts where she'd changed her mind about a word, and highlighted. Multiple sections this time. The part about the new guy, highlighted yellow. The sentence where she wrote his name, highlighted yellow. The part where she said she wasn't sure about him, highlighted yellow. And at the very bottom of her letter where she'd written, "I feel like something's off, but I can't explain it," highlighted, but not just highlighted, underlined, in pen, in handwriting that wasn't Danny's. I put the letter down, stepped back from the counter. My cat was watching me from the couch. Someone had read Danny's letter, copied it, highlighted specific sections about her personal life, underlined a sentence about her intuition, and placed the annotated copy back inside the sealed envelope. I called Danny that night. I didn't tell her about the copy. I wanted to, but I couldn't figure out how to say it without it sounding insane. Instead, I asked about the guy she'd mentioned. She said things were okay. She asked why. I said the letter made me curious. Then I asked about the feeling she'd described, the something's off feeling. She went quiet for a second. Then she said she didn't know. Just a heaviness lately, like being watched or, no, not watched, listened to. She laughed, said she was probably just stressed. I told her to be careful. She said about what? I said I don't know, just in general. She said okay, weirdo. We talked for another half hour about other things. After I hung up, I pulled the copy out of the trash where I'd thrown it, smoothed it on the table, looked at the underlined sentence again. I feel like something's off, but I can't explain it. The underline wasn't mechanical. It was done by hand, one smooth stroke, a pen with black ink, ballpoint. The pressure was even from left to right, controlled. I put all the copies in a folder after that. The birthday card, the dentist letter, the electric bill, Danny's letter. I kept them. Over the next 2 weeks, I received 3 more pieces of mail with copies inside. A renewal notice from my car insurance. Copy highlighted showing my license plate number and home address. A jury duty summons. Copy highlighted showing the date and my full legal name. A handwritten note from my neighbor downstairs inviting me to a book club she was starting. Copy highlighted where the neighbor wrote, "Looking forward to getting to know you better." That one made me feel sick. Getting to know you better. Highlighted. In a note that had traveled maybe 20 feet, from one apartment to another, through a mailbox. I started examining the envelopes more carefully, checking the seals, holding them up to light before opening, looking for signs of steaming or regluing, chemical residue, anything, nothing. Every envelope was sealed cleanly, the adhesive intact, no wrinkles, no dampness marks, no sign that anyone had opened them, but the copies were inside. I started testing it. I wrote a letter to myself, put it in an envelope, sealed it, addressed it to my own apartment, walked it down to the lobby, and put it in the outgoing mail slot. 3 days later, it came back, in my mailbox, sealed, my handwriting on the outside. I opened it, my letter, and beneath it, the copy. No highlighting this time, just the copy. My own words reproduced on thin white paper, folded neatly beneath the original. I had written one sentence in the letter, just a test. It said, "I know someone is reading this." The copy reproduced that sentence exactly, and below it, in that same black pen, that same controlled handwriting, one word: yes. I held the paper for a long time, hands steady. I'd expected it somehow. The confirmation, the acknowledgement. Someone was intercepting my mail. Every piece, reading it, copying it, placing the copy inside, resealing the envelope in a way that left no physical trace. And sometimes, annotating the copies, highlighting things, underlining things, responding. I went to the post office the next morning, waited in line for 20 minutes, told the clerk I had concerns about mail tampering. She gave me a form. I filled it out. She said they'd investigate. She said these things usually turn out to be nothing. A sorting machine error. A carrier mistake. I said someone is copying my mail and putting the copies back inside. She looked at me for a moment, then said they'd look into it. I never heard back. I told my building manager, an older man named Cal who worked out of a ground floor office that smelled like carpet cleaner. He listened, nodded slowly, said he'd check the mail area, see if anyone had been tampering with the boxes. A week later, he told me everything looked fine, no signs of forced entry on any mailbox. No unusual activity on the lobby camera. He'd checked the footage for the past month. Normal traffic, residents getting their mail, carrier coming and going, nothing unusual. I asked if I could see the footage. He said it wasn't his policy to share it, but he'd looked carefully, and there was nothing. I said someone is opening my mail. He said the boxes are secure. He said maybe it was happening at the distribution center. Before delivery, he said he was sorry. I started picking up my mail differently after that, going down multiple times a day, checking as soon as I heard the carrier come. I wanted to get to the envelopes before anyone else could. It didn't help. Even when I picked up the mail within minutes of delivery, the copies were already inside. I tested it more precisely. Watched from the stairwell one morning. The carrier arrived at 11:15. I saw her open the panel on the mailbox wall, insert mail into the individual boxes, close the panel, leave. I was at my box within 30 seconds. 2 pieces of mail that day, a credit card statement, and a letter from my mother. I opened the credit card statement right there in the lobby, standing next to the boxes. Inside, the statement and the copy, highlighted, my current balance, my last payment date, my home phone number. 30 seconds. The copy was inside 30 seconds after delivery, or it was inside before delivery, already in the envelope before the carrier placed it in my box. I opened my mother's letter. She'd written about her garden, about a recipe she wanted me to try, about how she wished I'd visit more often. The copy was inside, my mother's handwriting reproduced, the line about visiting more often highlighted, and beneath it, in that black pen, she's right. 2 words. She's right. I carried both letters upstairs, put them in the folder. The folder was getting thick. I kept it in my desk drawer. Then I moved it to my closet. Then I moved it to my bag because I didn't like it being in the apartment without me. I stopped telling people. Priya, my sister, my mom. Nobody reacted the way I needed them to. They'd get concerned, ask questions I couldn't answer, suggest things I'd already tried, change the subject, forget about it, move on. I couldn't move on. Every piece of mail was a communication now, not from the sender, from whoever was reading it first. I started paying attention to what was highlighted, looking for patterns. Financial information, always highlighted. Balances, account numbers, income references. Every piece of financial data in every piece of mail was marked. My address, highlighted every time it appeared. Personal relationships, names of people, references to connection, friendship, loneliness, always highlighted. Vulnerability, any mention of uncertainty, fear, discomfort, doubt, highlighted. It was like someone was building a profile, assembling me from my own correspondence, marking the points of access, the soft spots, the places where I was exposed. About 6 weeks in, I started changing my behavior, paying bills exclusively online, unsubscribing from physical mail whenever possible, setting up paperless everything. The volume decreased, less mail, fewer copies, but not zero. Some things still come physically: government correspondence, legal notices, the occasional personal letter I can't control. And even when I went a week without mail, sometimes I'd find something in my box that I hadn't received. Not mail addressed to me, not forwarded, not misdelivered. Copies, just copies, in blank envelopes, sealed, in my mailbox. Copies of things I didn't recognize. The first one was a lease agreement. Someone's lease. Not mine. Not for my building. An address I didn't know. A name I didn't know. The tenant's personal information highlighted throughout. The second was a medical bill. Someone else's. A name I didn't recognize. Highlighted charges. Highlighted diagnosis codes. The third was a personal letter, written by someone named Rachel to someone named Connie, about a divorce, about custody, about fear, highlighted throughout. I was being shown other people's copied mail. I sat with the folder in my lap that night, mine and theirs together. This collection of private moments, annotated, archived, delivered. Why was I being shown these? Were Rachel and Connie getting copies of my mail? Were they finding my mother's letter in their envelopes, my electric bill, my friend Danny's words about something feeling off? Were we all in a system? Were we all being read? I tried finding Connie, the names on the lease, the medical bill. I searched online, social media, address lookups. Nothing came up. Not conclusively. The names were too common, the addresses too vague. I thought about going to one of the addresses, knocking, asking if they'd experienced anything similar. But the idea of showing up at a stranger's door holding copies of their private mail felt wrong in a way I couldn't justify. I'd be doing the same thing that was being done to me, showing someone their own exposed life without their consent. I kept the copies, all of them, mine and the others. The folder became a box, a shoebox in my closet, then a larger box under my bed. Then something changed. I got a letter from my sister, a real letter. She occasionally sends cards when she's feeling sentimental or guilty about not calling enough. This one was a short note on a plain white card. It said she missed me, said things at home were complicated, said she didn't want to talk about it on the phone yet, said she'd explain when she was ready. The copy was inside. Of course it was. But the highlighting was different this time. The line "things at home were complicated" was highlighted. and below my sister's letter, on the copy, in that same pen, that same handwriting, a paragraph, not a word, not a sentence, a paragraph. It said, "She filed a protection order on Tuesday. He hasn't left yet. The locks haven't been changed. She parks at the neighbor's house now. She doesn't want you to worry, but you should know." I read it 3 times. Then I called my sister. She didn't answer. I called again. Voicemail. I texted her. "Please call me." I texted again. "Are you safe?" She called me back an hour later, said she was fine, said things were hard. I asked about the protection order. She went completely silent. Then she said, "How do you know about that?" I said someone told me. She said who? No one knows. She hadn't told anyone except her lawyer. It was filed 3 days ago. She hadn't even told our mom. I said I got a letter. I said there was information in it that I can't explain. She said that's not possible. She said the filing is sealed. She said she hasn't spoken to anyone about it. I didn't know what to tell her. I couldn't explain it. How do you explain that someone who reads your mail also apparently knows things that aren't in your mail? The note about my sister wasn't a copy of anything. It was original information, written by whoever writes in that black pen. Information that was accurate, specific, current. They weren't just reading my mail anymore. They were telling me things I needed to know, things that were being hidden from me by the people in my life. I drove to my sister's house the next morning, 2-hour drive. She was surprised. I told her I knew about the protection order because I'd received information about it. I didn't say how. She didn't push. She was too tired to push. She told me what happened. I stayed the weekend. We changed her locks together. She filed an amendment to the order. On the drive home, I thought about the note. Whoever wrote it had been right. Completely right. Down to the detail about parking at the neighbor's house. My sister confirmed that. She'd been doing it for a week. How did they know? Were they reading her mail too? Monitoring her legal filings? Watching her patterns? Or was it something else? Something I couldn't name. When I got home, there was a piece of mail waiting. A copy in a plain envelope. Not of my mail. Not of anyone's mail. Just a piece of white paper. Same thin stock. Written in that same handwriting. It said, "You did the right thing." And below it, "She's safe now." I sat on my couch holding that piece of paper, and I felt 2 completely contradictory things. Relief that someone confirmed my sister was safe, and terror that someone had been watching her, watching me, knowing everything. These 2 feelings existed simultaneously, and I couldn't resolve them. I still can't. After my sister, the notes continued, mixed in with the copies. Sometimes I'd get a regular copied piece of mail with standard highlighting. Sometimes I'd get an envelope with nothing but a note. They told me things. That my coworker Marcus was being investigated for mishandling client accounts. I didn't know that. I checked. It was true. He was placed on leave the following week. That my building was being sold. That the new owners would raise rent significantly. I didn't know that. The announcement came 8 days later. That Danny in Oregon, the new guy she'd been seeing, he had a prior restraining order in another state. I didn't know that, I told Danny. She didn't believe me at first. Then she looked it up. She stopped seeing him. Every note was accurate. Every piece of information was something I couldn't have known through normal means. And every time I acted on it, every time I used the information, something improved. Someone was protected. Some small harm was prevented. I started to need the notes. I know how that sounds. I started checking my mail not with dread but with anticipation, hoping for the plain envelope, the thin paper, the black handwriting. What would they tell me today? What would I learn? What could I prevent? Who could I help? It became the most reliable source of truth in my life, more reliable than the news, more reliable than the people around me who kept secrets and told partial truths and said everything was fine when it wasn't. Whoever was in my mail, they never lied to me. Not once. I know how that sounds too. I started to feel grateful, and that's when I realized how wrong everything had become. Because the highlighting hadn't stopped. They were still marking my private information, still copying my financial data, my account numbers, my address, my personal relationships, my vulnerabilities. They were still reading every word anyone sent me and annotating it. They were still showing me other people's mail, still exposing strangers' divorces and debts and fears. They were violating everyone, constantly, comprehensively, and I was looking forward to it. I went back to the folder, the box, pulled out all the annotated copies of other people's mail, Rachel's divorce, Connie's lease, the medical bills. I looked at them again, the highlighted information, the account numbers, the addresses, the diagnosis codes, and I realized I'd never looked at the other side of those pages. I turned over Rachel's divorce letter. On the back, in that same handwriting, a note. She needs someone to check on her, and below it, an address. I flipped the medical bill over. He's been missing appointments on purpose, and an address. The lease agreement. She'll be evicted in 30 days. She doesn't know yet. And an address. I'd had these for months. Months. And I'd never looked at the backs. I was being given assignments, not just information, instructions, people to check on, things to do, actions to take. And I hadn't done them because I'd been too focused on myself, on my own mail, my own fear. I put the papers back in the box, sat on the floor of my bedroom for a long time. There was an envelope in my mailbox the next morning. I'd checked before work. Empty box. Checked again when I came home at 5:30. One envelope, plain white, sealed. Inside, a single sheet, no copy, no highlight, just the handwriting. It said, "You found the others. You weren't supposed to wait this long, but that's okay. It's not too late. There are more envelopes coming. Not all of them will be for you. Some of them will be for you to deliver." I put the paper in the box with the others. I sat on my couch. My cat jumped up. I held her. I thought about what was being asked. Someone, some system, some presence inside the postal infrastructure, or alongside it, or above it. Something that could read every piece of mail, know every secret, monitor every person, and it had been feeding me information, accurate information, useful information, and now it wanted me to bring that information to other people, to become what it was, a reader, a monitor, a deliverer of things people didn't know they needed to know. I thought about Danny and the restraining order she didn't know about, how I'd told her, how she'd been angry at first, then grateful, how she was safe now. I thought about my sister, the protection order, how I'd driven there, changed her locks, how she was safe now. And I thought about Rachel, whose divorce letter I'd held for months, who someone said needed checking on, whose address I had, and the person with the medical bills, and the person facing eviction. I'd done nothing for them. 3 days later, 2 envelopes arrived, both plain white, both sealed, both in my mailbox. One had my name on it. One had a different name, a woman named Trisha Barlow, and an address on the south side of the city. I opened mine first, a copy of my credit card statement from last month, highlighted as usual, my balance, my address, and on the back, deliver the other envelope. Do not open it. She needs it by Thursday. I looked at the second envelope, Trisha Barlow, her address. No return address. I held it up to the light, could see something inside. Paper, multiple sheets. Do not open it. I put both envelopes on my kitchen table, looked at them for a long time. I could open it. No one would know, or would they? If they could read sealed mail, if they could place copies inside sealed envelopes, then they'd know if I opened Trisha's envelope. They'd know everything. I didn't open it, but I didn't deliver it either. Not that night, not the next day. Wednesday evening, another envelope appeared in my mailbox. My name, plain white, inside, one line. Tomorrow is Thursday. I drove to the address the next morning before work. South Side, a narrow street with row houses. The address was a ground floor unit. Blue door, small porch, a wind chime hanging motionless in the still morning air. I left the envelope on the mat. Didn't knock. Walked back to my car. Drove to work. All day I thought about what was inside it. What Trisha Barlow was going to read. Whether it was copies of her own mail highlighted and annotated, or information about someone in her life, or instructions. I thought about whether she'd been getting copies too, whether she'd been sitting in her apartment for weeks, afraid, then curious, then dependent, the same way I had, whether there was a whole network of us, readers who became deliverers, who became monitors ourselves, each of us feeding information to the next, each of us telling ourselves it was helpful, it was protective, it was good, each of us holding other people's private lives in our hands and choosing what to do with them. That evening there was an envelope waiting. My name, plain white, inside. She received it. Thank you. There are 7 more this month. I put it in the box. 7 more. 7 envelopes to deliver. 7 strangers' doors. 7 private communications I wasn't supposed to open. I could stop. I knew I could stop. Nobody was forcing me. Nobody had threatened me. Nobody had said what would happen if I refused. But I thought about my sister, and Danny, and the information that had been right every single time, and how I'd felt when I read she's safe now. And I thought about the 7 people who might need to know something hidden from them, something dangerous, something they couldn't access on their own. I couldn't stop. That's the part I can't explain to anyone. Not Priya, not my therapist, not the police if I went back to them. I can't stop because it works. It helps. It's real. Someone is reading my mail. Every piece, every word, every secret anyone shares with me in writing. My medical information, my financial records, my friends' confessions, my mother's loneliness, my sister's fear, all of it is seen. All of it is copied. All of it is annotated. And in exchange, I know things. I help people. I deliver envelopes I can't open to doors I've never visited. And I tell myself it's my choice. The box under my bed has 53 pieces of paper in it now. Copies, notes, instructions, confirmations. I've delivered 14 envelopes. I've never opened one that wasn't addressed to me. I've never been wrong about any information I've received. And every morning when I check my mailbox, my hands shake. Not from fear, from anticipation. And that's how I know something is wrong with me now. The last note I received was 3 days ago. In my mailbox, plain envelope, my name, one sentence. Someone will start delivering yours soon. I don't know what that means. I thought I was the only recipient. I thought the notes in my mail were between me and whoever reads everything. But if someone will start delivering mine, then I have a deliverer too. Someone is going to come to my door with an envelope they didn't open, with information about me that I didn't share, highlighted, annotated, all the things I've been told about other people. Someone is being told about me, what I owe, where I live, who I love, what I fear, the sentences I underline in books, the confessions my friends trust me with, every piece of me that passes through the mail, copied, highlighted, delivered, and I'll never know who reads it. The same way Rachel never knew I had her divorce letter. The same way Trisha Barlow doesn't know my name or my face. We're all in this system, connected by paper, by someone's handwriting, by the things we're given and the things we carry. And I keep checking the mailbox every morning, every evening. I still want to know what it says. Even knowing what I know now, I still want the envelope. Subscribe for more horror stories. Comment what kind of horror unsettles you the most, and press the bell icon to get haunted.